Welcome and happy Friday, everyone. It's about the weekend here, and Hurricane Erin continues to race away from the eastern seaboard and losing her tropical characteristics, but a powerful system which will bring strong winds to coastal waters near Nova Scotia and then Newfoundland tonight. We've got more to track here in the Atlantic, a couple of disturbances which could become our next two named storms, and possibly more action down the road forming off the East Coast. We're going to take a look at that here, but welcome back if you are a new subscriber or returning subscriber. I appreciate you joining me this hurricane season. We're just getting started in what should be a very active stretch coming up here in September and October. I'm going to share my screen with you here to zoom Earth, and you are going to see our areas that we're watching in the Atlantic. Hurricane Erin moving off to the northeast. We'll have a new advisory here in a little bit, but probably will be the last advisory as the Hurricane Center no longer tracks post-tropical storms, but still a powerful system as it races off to the northeast here. We've got two other areas that we're going to watch, two invests, one to the north of the islands, which could be a threat to Bermuda here as soon as Monday, and another one which will be moving towards the Windward Islands here early next week as well. In the Pacific, a new area to watch off the coast of Mexico at this point does not look like a threat, but it does have a chance of developing. And in the Western Pacific, we do have a strengthening depression, which has the possibility of becoming a typhoon before making landfall in northern Vietnam, then crossing Laos after that. And some adjustments in that forecast certainly could be made as well over time. The season, we have caught up here after what some might consider to be a slow start. We had four named storms before Erin, and none of them really was anything too significant, at least nothing hurricane-wise. Then Erin got us above climatology, and it does say 2001, but trust me, it's 2025. We are now up to an ACE value almost 35. The average for today is 20 to 21. So we have very quickly swung the pendulum on the side of an active season. And I do think we're going to see less and less major hurricane activity in the next week or so. But as we head into September, there could be another pulse that triggers more storms that could turn into hurricanes. So we've talked about Erin a lot, leaving the Gulf Stream waters, heading into colder water here and speeding up. Eventually, that system will be quite a powerful system over the Northern Atlantic, then should weaken as it becomes occluded near Iceland and Western Ireland. But the next system bears watching in Bermuda in particular. It has not shown strong signs of formation, but you can see it's heading into an area that will be warmer. And these warm waters have not been touched by the ones Erin touched, so they are quite toasty. And anything that does get forming here could develop very quickly into a hurricane, at least a tropical storm. So we're going to be talking about that in this video. And then the next area continues to struggle, but is still holding on for its dear life and may get into a better environment to develop into a depression or tropical storm as it approaches the Windward Islands here early next week. Here's one last look at Erin. I'll talk about her this weekend in my videos, but at this point, a post-tropical system racing off to the east-northeast, staying far enough south of Newfoundland to keep the strongest winds to your south and moving away from Bermuda. I did see there were some power outages in Bermuda, but it wasn't a big deal, at least considering what Bermuda's gone through. But you can see there will still be some strong winds for the coast of Atlantic Canada, especially Nova Scotia and Newfoundland here, as this moves away here later tonight into tomorrow. Then things should quiet down some over the weekend, but that won't be it as far as fronts and powerful lows affecting Atlantic Canada and New England. We are going to see an active stretch coming up. Here is the visible satellite, not the infrared. And you can see here powerful Erin passing to the south of Nova Scotia here. Still has a bit of a thunderstorm center with it, although it is starting to get that dry air in here, and it's accelerating, moving now at closer to 25 to 30 miles per hour. So it'll be racing past Cape Race, Newfoundland. The next system here is beginning to show some gradual signs of organization. It is bringing some dry air into the southwestern side of it. So things are fairly quiet over Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands compared to where they were. But this is something we're going to have to watch on the island of Bermuda as well, as models take it, generally speaking, in this direction. And we're going to talk about the exact track of that here coming up. We do have a frontal boundary stuck across the southeast. There are indications that heavy rain will continue over the eastern portion of Georgia and South Carolina and northeastern Florida here. As this moves out over water, I don't think it develops into a tropical system, but we could have a coastal low of some form here by the time we get to the end of this upcoming weekend and early next week. And that could find its way back up into New England and Atlantic Canada as well. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on in this video. Here's a look at Erin, and you can see making a comeback here, not quite ready to be done from being a hurricane. In fact, we could see a little bit of strengthening here in the next couple of days, not due to the water temperatures, but due to an enhancement from the jet stream, which we call this a sting jet. It could actually give it a kick in the pants and give it a little bit more intensity, but it's not really a direct threat to land. So at this point, we'll continue to track it and watch it, but should just be a fish storm from here on out. I'm not saying it hasn't been a fish storm. It hasn't made any official landfall. We've had impacts on land, but this one will avoid any direct landfall at this point. You can see the intensity forecast likely to continue to drop off. I don't know why Tropical Tidbits calls this remnants. It is still a bona fide hurricane, but it is losing the tropical characteristics that you would typically see in a hurricane. And so I guess it's a hybrid storm at this point. But the intensity could actually come back up here over the weekend, closer to 100 miles per hour, and then drop off gradually here early next week. Here's a look at the wind gusts that we're expecting in Atlantic Canada here this evening, maybe as high as 35 to 40 kilometers per hour on the Cape Sable and on the south coast. But Newfoundland will see winds picking up here on the Avalon Peninsula here this evening, 40 to 60 kilometers per hour, with the strongest winds likely affecting Cape Race, Newfoundland here during the late night hours tonight into the first part of tomorrow. There will be the potential to have kilometers per hour over 70 if the European is right. Other models are a little bit lower on that. But certainly we have the potential to have some locally strong winds here over the period of the overnight hours and first thing tomorrow. Things should subside, though, in Newfoundland as we get into the afternoon hours tomorrow. And by nighttime, things are fairly quiet. It'll still be windy with our next front moving through the area here early next week. And we could see winds starting to crank back up here by Tuesday. But at this point, the next feature I'm watching that could affect Bermuda is likely to stay out to sea by the time it gets up here at this point. We'll continue to track that for you, though, because obviously a storm that is still developing doesn't have the best forecasting skill. Models are guessing at a low that hasn't quite formed into an actual closed-off circulation, so it could still change some. But overall, you can see the winds associated with Erin are massive. The winds associated with the next system, not so much. And then we're going to say windy here with fronts moving through basically every 4 to 5 days across the Northeast and into New England as well. All right, moving on. We're going to show you the rest of the Caribbean, the Gulf, and areas closer to land here. And this is the area that we're watching for development here. Tough to say where the center is. The thunderstorms are up here, but it's possible the center is actually down in here. I thought aircraft were supposed to get in there today. Maybe they still are, but I haven't seen any reports. So we may be waiting till tomorrow morning before we figure out if this will be a tropical depression or storm, but the odds are pretty high it will be something, and likely heading in the direction of Bermuda. So by Sunday night and Monday, we could have some weather to deal with again in Bermuda. And at this point, I don't think it's going to be a direct slam hit, but that is certainly something we still need to be watching. Elsewhere, is ugly on the Gulf Coast here this afternoon. Lots of heavy rain, anywhere from southeast Texas all the way across to northeastern Florida, even getting some welcome rain over parts of South Florida. At this point, it's just a front hanging out, so we really can't get too excited about development odds of anything until it moves out over the Gulf, but we'll have to keep an eye on that too. But right now, conditions don't favor something quickly spinning up. And then we have an area here south of the Mexican Riviera right here that is going to be heading away and unlikely to be a threat to land at this point. But that moisture could get picked up and brought into Mexico in the southwest as well. They could use some for sure. All right, farther out in the Atlantic behind 90L, that's, oops, I thought I was writing on the map. This is 90L over here. The one given the number before was 99, so we go from 99 back to 90. There are 10 possible numbers, 90 to 99, to get an invest name. An invest is basically an area being investigated for tropical development. This one got a little bit of a jump ahead of this one, even though this one I think has better potential. But we're watching both of these. You can see there's going to be a strong amount of wind shear and some dry air to fight here. But we still have thunderstorms, and they're going to bring some heavy rain to somebody, albeit this one here is looking less and less likely to be an issue for land other than Bermuda. This one we do need to watch, though, as it heads towards the Windward Islands early next week. There's another wave behind that's come off in a couple of pieces from Africa. Right now, things are looking highly unfavorable for that to form into anything. There's a lot of stable air coming in, a lot of Saharan dust. And at this point, we'll watch it, but the development odds are awfully low, and it's not being shown as a possible invest on most of our models. So you can see that a lot of dry air is coming down here in front of this next wave. There's a fair amount of dry air getting in between 90 and 99 here as well. And there's an upper level low here on top of that. So this system is going to have to fight for its life. The wind shear is going to be fairly high as it moves into this direction. However, there's a small window for it to possibly develop here near Barbados, near St. Vincent, Grenadines, the rest of the islands here, especially the Windward Islands, as we get to early next week. You're getting rain regardless. You may get some wind, but the big question mark is, do we see a tropical system come out of this? And right now, it's a little bit too soon to make that call. Quickly on the visible, you can see here as it's getting dark, we've got two spinny things, but nothing looking aggressively strong. I thought we were going to have recon going in. Maybe we still do, but looks like it's hanging out in Puerto Rico getting some fuel. So maybe it's got a little bit of time before it goes back out. So we're going to take a close look here at the possible track and intensity here of 90L first. And you can see there's definitely some southerly wind shear, southwest wind shear, which is stretching the thunderstorms out from south to north and keeping this from becoming a bona fide tropical system. And you can see here on the last visible imagery before we get dark here in the central Atlantic, there's a very broad spin in this area. And there's also a little bit of twist in this area. So right now, nothing super exciting going on with this, but things can still change fairly quickly. A lot can happen in a couple of days. And the reason why I'm a little bit concerned is that this system is heading into some of the warmest portion of the central Atlantic, off to the south and east of Bermuda, where water temperatures are running as warm as 30 to 31 degrees Celsius, which is about as warm as it gets over this portion of the Atlantic. So there's a window for this to pull away from the wind shear and start strengthening. It may take at least a day for that to happen, but we're going to have to watch it pretty closely Sunday and Monday. Now, some better news for Bermuda. Our latest forecast model guidance indicates that the system is going to curve and stay to the right of Bermuda. Yesterday, if you'll remember, we had quite a bit of an area that was showing Bermuda right in the middle of this potential track. Now it's showing it going by to the east, and it's not a massively big storm, so we may avoid the worst in Bermuda. Now, I don't want to call all clear. In fact, there's talk that the Hurricane Center may be talking with the government of Bermuda and issuing some sort of tropical storm watch tomorrow. But the odds of taking a direct hit right now remain on the low side. They're lower than they were yesterday. Down the road, we'll watch things in coastal Newfoundland. That would be 4 or 5 days from now. So we're talking next Wednesday for another potential impact. But that front I talked about is going to kick this offshore pretty quickly. So there is a curve coming. Here's a GFS ensemble for you to see. Again, only one ensemble member goes west of Bermuda. Everybody's east otherwise. Here is the Canadian ensemble even farther to the east. Yes, we're still going to watch it in Newfoundland. The ship's forecast here, I don't know why it's not showing the eventual track. I guess because it's going to jump off the screen here. But you can see here that wind shear is actually coming down in the next couple of days. Water temperatures stay fairly warm and relative humidity stays moderately high. So we definitely have some potential for this to strengthen. I don't know if it's going to strengthen as fast as the possible worst case scenario, which is a 55 knot increase, getting us to an 80 knot hurricane, which is a stronger category 1, maybe category 2, but there's a 14% chance of that happening according to this model. And it's just a chance, but something we need to watch. Here's a look at the Google DeepMind AI models, and you can see stretching to the east of Bermuda at this point, the European ensemble also to the east of Bermuda. You can see, though, there are a few members that are going stronger here, maybe as high as category 2 hurricane intensity. By the way, if that happens, it would be well away from Bermuda off into the North Atlantic between Bermuda and Newfoundland, and then it would turn away and weaken. So we're going to watch it carefully for you here. Not as aggressive on the models as what we saw yesterday, but still showing some development of this system, and Fernand would be the next name on the list. Here's the HWRF. This is the regional hurricane model showing the system staying quite small, smaller than what we saw with Erin as it came closer to the Turks and Caicos here early in the week. But you'll see it is beginning to grow a core here on the HWRF model by Sunday evening, maybe a bona fide hurricane at that point. But you can see Bermuda over here actually would have some light northwest winds. So if this model is correct, and I would say it's probably not got a great chance of being correct, but maybe it's on to something, this system may be peaking after it bypasses Bermuda and staying relatively small until it gets up into the North Atlantic. And at that point, we'll watch it in Newfoundland, but you can see Tough to see on here, actually. Newfoundland's up in here. There's actually a frontal boundary here, which is likely going to kick the system away. So I don't think we need to get too worried about it. I did talk about it with more concern than yesterday, only because of the models have now made a shift to the east. But you know what? Until it passes, we got to watch it anyway. So the halves B shows how it's going to grow here. And eventually we will have a closed off circulation. It may take until Sunday night, but this system is likely passing to the east and finding its little niche here ahead of our next front, becoming a small hurricane, and then eventually getting hit with westerly shear by Wednesday, not affecting Newfoundland. You can see down here on the southern portion of my screen, this is the next one. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. We also have a front here that could try to form an area of low pressure that rides up the coast here later Sunday into Monday. I think the odds of it becoming tropical, though, would be extremely low. Just some rain and some wind, and maybe some nasty winds for the Outer Banks and coastal New England once again. Again, I don't think it'd be a strong system, but something that certainly isn't going to help out the situation we've been in this week. So the beach weekend, not looking great, unfortunately, especially South Carolina, but even North Carolina and Virginia. I would expect to see cloud cover and probably some rain here, according to the GFS model. So here's a look at the mid-level humidity here. Here you can see what I think will end up being Fernand. We're also watching the next wave down in here. So it's tough to say which one of these is going to scoop up the next name, because this one may be finding its way here to just overachieve. We saw that last year with small storms like Oscar, which snuck up out of nowhere up in here and became almost a Category 2 storm. So sometimes it just takes turning off the wind shear hose and turning on the moisture, and we get something small and sneaky. I mean, that could certainly happen, but it's likely this one here would be Fernand. This one might be Gabrielle, and it may not. So we'll be watching that here over the coming days. It does have an opportunity here as it moves through the islands to maybe be a storm. This one will make its closest approach to Bermuda around lunchtime on Monday and then heads out after that. You can see a big push of dry air comes into the southeast early next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. So after a nasty weekend, we are eventually going to get to a very beautiful taste of early fall here by the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday for much of the central and eastern United States. That is good news. Those of you on the Gulf Coast know, though, when a front gets into the Gulf this time of the year, we got to watch it like a hawk. Right now, things are not super favorable for development, but we're going to watch it. You can see the GFS shows ample moisture coming out of the deep tropics, moving into the Gulf. The front doesn't get too far south. It doesn't hang out for too long. And at this point, it's way too sudden to try to make any kind of calls. But after Labor Day, the Gulf could get busier. We just don't really know yet at what extent that would happen. All right, let's talk about the next feature out in the open Atlantic. Not looking as good as it did earlier in the day, but it still has some thunderstorm activity with it. It's also got a very large amount of dry air on the southeastern side of the circulation here. And that circulation, tough to pick out, all the way down to the 10th latitude. So basically about as far south as the system would legitimately form in the tropics. When you get closer to the equator, it just doesn't typically happen. We lose the steering mechanism to get a tropical system to form. Can't say it would never happen, but it's awfully rare. So we're watching this area. There's not a plane going into it right now. We're going off of satellite imagery, and it's getting dark. So the odds of it getting stronger, faster are fairly limited. We'll get into some warmer water tomorrow, but it's got a ways for that to happen. But assuming that those thunderstorms hold together, it is on track to get to the islands here in 72 hours, which would put us at Monday in the afternoon. And then quickly moving out, and then Tuesday over the Eastern Caribbean, and then continuing across the Southern Caribbean. And unless it gains some latitude in here, it's going to struggle because it'll be dealing with a higher terrain from Venezuela and Colombia. But generally speaking, ending up near Central America here in about a week. I will show you later on in the video. There's a couple of options for it when it gets out there, assuming it's even still around. Here you can see the GFS, though, keeps it fairly weak and west. Here's the Canadian. Here's a couple of those options we're going to take a look at, albeit they're far-fetched. We need to at least give them some consideration. And here is Google showing something that's probably getting killed by wind shear here by the time we get to Tuesday near the ABC Islands, possibly as far north as a couple hundred miles away from Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. But there's always that one that just keeps us up at night, and we do need to keep an eye on that possibility. The intensity forecast here, again, it hasn't formed into a depression. It probably will struggle mightily for at least the next 36 to 48 hours. And then there's a little bit of a window for it to become a low end tropical storm. That would be on Sunday and Monday as it moves quickly towards the islands. So it may peak in intensity when it gets there. I don't know if I trust this right now because remember, we're going to have to fight South America and some wind shear and some dry air. It's more likely we see something like this. But if it's still around at this time frame, which is in a week, then there will be a window if it stays far enough away from land where the warm waters of the Caribbean could start to work their magic. And again, that's a May at this point. I'm not saying that to try to hype you and scare you and get you all fired up for Labor Day weekend. It's just, I've done this for over 20 years, and I will tell you, you can look at a group of models and 10 days away, it can change significantly. So let's track it day by day at this point. You're going to see some arguments against it holding on. Mainly the fact that we've got this upper level trough east of the islands over the weekend. So the wind shear out of the southwest will be fairly high. But after the system passes that trough, it does have a window here with some lighter wind shear over the islands. Then the challenge is going to be, what does it do over the Caribbean? And it's not looking very favorable. You can see that westerly wind shear begins to increase here early next week. It isn't until the system is closer to Central America here Thursday and Friday. It would have to be awfully close. In fact, it would have to escape this big old front coming down where it might have a window to try to do something. But right now, we're just staring at models. We don't exactly know how things are going to work out in the longer run. So looking off into the future, we've seen this flurry of activity because we've had a MJO that's gotten active in phases 2, 3, and 4, which typically leads to more stuff coming off of Africa. And you can see that here. Well, that action coming off of Africa is probably coming to a halt, or it'll be significantly muted as we get out of this phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation. There are options, though, over time where we get back into a similar phase here around the 5th or 4th of September, and that could start to get things going closer to land again. But next week, things are not looking very favorable for widespread tropical development. Other than something spinning up briefly off of a front or something, it doesn't look like a great chance. And the European confirms this. This is Erin. This could be Fernand. This could be Gabrielle, or those two get switched. Those odds are fairly slim. But then as you see, once we go on past Tuesday and this system moves into the northern Atlantic, there's really nothing to really stress about until maybe some homegrown development over Labor Day weekend. And if that happens, you can see it's probably going to be offshore. The possibility of a tropical depression awfully low as well. But, we'll just keep an eye on it at this point. But I think we're going to head into a period where things aren't going to be quite so active, but we've got to get to that period first, and that's going to be a few more days. Here's a look at the AI ensembles here. This is Erin moving out. This is possible F storm, possible G storm. I'm not going to keep repeating the names till they happen. Then you see this area of low pressure scooting up the coast here. That shouldn't be tropical, but it is heading right up towards Nova Scotia here by the time we get to Monday night and Tuesday of next week. Again, probably not tropical. You see there's not a whole lot of support across the Caribbean, but there's always that one we got to watch just in case. If it does find a way to come farther north, then we do need to watch it in the Northwest Caribbean and eventually the Gulf. But again, that's going to be the exception to what the trend is, and that's if the system kind of dies and moves west, and then that's that. The other day, I showed you some members that tried to revive the wave somewhere in this area and here and bring it across the Western Gulf. With maybe an outside chance Texas would come into play today. Those are not even showing up, but you see the one that did try to form this system gain latitude and ended up being an issue. So I'm not sounding the alarm at this point for the Southeast. Just keep an eye on it right now. But right now things aren't looking super great for that to happen. And here's the European. Again, you can see it's showing that one little opportunity here for something to try to sneak into the Gulf. This one's farther west. But again, it's an outlier at this point. And here, this goes to my point here. After Labor Day, we start to see more waves coming back off of Africa. So we get a 1 week break, but then things could start going again here early in September. Real quick, I want to show you the icon model here as it tracks our wave across the islands. You can see here that it's going to struggle through Monday morning, but we could have if an area of low pressure gains enough latitude, just something you're going to want to watch in Haiti and Jamaica here for next Wednesday night and Thursday. And the icon indicates it gets far enough north where, there's still a chance here that something could form. So I know we're trying to write this thing off because it doesn't look like it's going to have a bright future, but two ensembles of the European, some hints from the GFS a couple of days ago, now the Icon. They at least show that there's that possibility. So let's not completely discount it, but right now I think that it's awfully unlikely to happen. Down the road, I talked about how the action's going to pick up. Look at how wet things are going to be off the East Coast and across Florida and the Southern Gulf. This indicates multiple potential tropical systems, but also lots of fronts coming down here. So we are likely going to see a pretty active period. That's why I've kept the East Coast on alert this year. I think it will definitely be active. You can see tropical waves are going to stutter as they come off the coast, but when they get closer to about 45, 50 west, we're going to see active weather moving towards the islands. It just may take longer for these systems to form. And then you'll see there's still going to be a pathway for some stuff to come up towards Bermuda. The northwestern Gulf and much of the central and deep southern United States. So over the next 46 days, the trend is going to be drier than average and hopefully cooler than average as well. Here's the MJO I talked about. Real quick, we'll wrap it up with this. You can see that we've been in the favorable phases that I talked about, 1, 2, and 3 over the last week. We're heading into a null phase here over the next few days, and then it looks like it cycles back into 1 and 2 right around September 1, 2nd, or 3rd. So right at the beginning of the month, right after Labor Day, we start to get back potentially into a more favorable spot for development. I'll leave you with this on the East Coast. I wanted to show you what we're looking at here. Maybe low pressure forming over the Outer Banks Saturday night and Sunday. I don't think it's strong, but there's more rain coming. Here is potential Fernand coming close to Bermuda. You can see this low comes up. So we get a 1-2 punch for Atlantic Canada. But in reality here, this second feature is probably getting kicked away. This will be interesting to watch, though. Later in the week, another low comes out. And then beyond that, we could see additional development over next weekend nearer to the east of the East Coast. So depending on how close to the beach you live, you may be in for some beautiful weather, but if you're at the beach, we're watching these systems like a hawk. They may not get names, but they may not make things great, unfortunately. So that's all I've got today. I'm going to wrap things up here real quick with a Christian word of encouragement. If you are a person of faith, this is directed towards you, but I will say this. Oops, I think I lost it. Maybe not. That's all right. Get my history back up here. There we go. Matthew 6:33, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. This is something that I struggle with. That is seeking God first. And I don't know what your personal belief is. You may not even be a Christian believer. You may just really like the weather. And then this is like, whoa, what? Wait, what are you talking about? You're a weather guy. Well, I'm a Christian. And God has called me to do this. He's called me to share the good word. But the opportunity to put God first gives us the opportunity to seek God, seek his righteousness, give him all the glory, and then all these wonderful things are coming to you. And by wonderful, I mean the miracle that Jesus has been resurrected from the death, that Jesus is Lord, and that one day he's coming again. And we will spend eternity with him. But we have to make the choice to find God first, to repent, to change the ways that maybe we were brought up as not being godly, but in fact worldly, to not put our faith or trust in God, to not believe that Jesus was resurrected. But when we do that, when we seek his righteousness, all of his glory will be revealed one day. And that is the good news I came here to share with you. Just like something big happens to them, they get tickets to some kind of rare event, a concert they're excited about, they want to share with others. Well, that's how I feel about Jesus. That's what excites me every day. That's what keeps me going here on YouTube, the opportunity to share that wonderful, powerful word with you all. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to try to get back on here tomorrow. And do me a favor, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel and you'll see the next videos. I appreciate y'all. Have a great night.